I wasn't going to do a review because, well, I just wasn't. But here I am. It'll be a quick one. She always says that and she waffles on. I've just been to see The Shining. It's Halloween. This was the Odeon's offering for a classic horror. And I have seen The Shining before, only once. And I remember thinking it was very good. And then I read the book, and then I read Stephen King's thoughts on it, on the Kubrick film version. And I kind of agreed. And I don't know, I put that down to maybe I was young and I got a bit swayed and I thought, yes, I agree with Stephen King about this. So I wanted to come and see it tonight just to have my own opinion and just to see it as a much older person than the first time I saw it. And God, reading the book must be, when did I go for my Stephen King phase? I feel like it was around the time my dad had his accident, so that's 2000, so that's 23 years ago. But I remember starting to read some of the classics. So I read the really early stuff. I read Carrie, I read Misery, I read The Shining. And yeah, Stephen King's take on it, he's always been very vocal, about everything, but when it came to this film adaptation of his work, he always said he didn't like it because the subtlety was lost, that it was too Jack Nicholson. And Jack Nicholson is absolutely synonymous with the role of Jack Torrance. For a man and an actor whose career is full of quite iconic characters, the Joker, the Devil and the Witches of Eastwick. Can't remember his character name in As Good as It Gets, but that guy, which I think he won an Oscar for. So, he's kind of one of those people where he's Jack Nicholson and everything, but you kind of don't mind because Jack Nicholson's cool. But yeah, I've just sat through it again. I was a little bit dozy, if I'm honest. Tucked myself in under my big coat and then kept sort of not quite nodding off. It's not because the film's boring, it's not boring. Winding it back, right? So went in, open mind, the very 70s. And there was stuff I really liked about it, and it's quite stylish, and it's so very much a snapshot of its time. This big grand hotel and, the late 70s clothes and, one of the things that struck me was very early on when he goes to the interview about whether or not he's going to look after the hotel over the winter. The guy in charge of the hotel just tells him about Grady, who had looked after it before, who had, gone bananas, and Hacktoby's family. And when he's obviously skirting around it because it's not an easy thing to tell an interviewee. So I need you to do this job while you stay in this hotel for 5 months, right? But somebody who did it before went bananas and hacked up their family. So he's obviously quite awkwardly, Mr. Ullman, the character's name is, trying to tell Jack about what happened. Jack's face is utterly expressionless. He just sort of looks. There's no reaction, there's no gasp, there's no horror, nothing. Just sort of stares like Jack Nicholson. Looks nuts. And I've always thought one of the things I didn't like about the film, aside from the Stephen King issue about Jack Nicholson's performance or Jack Nicholson's casting full stop, I always said I didn't like Shelley Duvall. And when it started and I first saw her, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. And I first saw her, I thought, oh God, this bloody woman and her bloody face. And to begin with, I was like, yeah, I don't like her at all. I think she's a bit wet. But then, with hindsight, with, knowledge and age, I'm like, Christ, she is obviously a victim of domestic violence. She lives on the edge of her nerves because she's married to a man who obviously scares the crap out of her and has possibly beaten the crap out of her on occasion. She's so tense around him and edgy, and you can see her trying to keep him happy, and Actually found her performance quite compelling. I liked her more. I don't know if liked is the right word, but I was a lot more like, her performance had a lot more of an impact on me now that I see it through a lens of understanding more about, what DV looks like and her behaviour and just trying to protect Danny. Another thing that struck me is how good the kid is. The actor's name was actually Danny as well. Just coincidence. And in my head, when I've thought back on the film, I think about him riding his little trike, and I think, just about his funny little 70s kid haircut, and I don't really remember previously much about his performance. The kid's really good. He's really, really good, and especially when he's doing the stuff when he's talking to Tony, his best friend. Red rum, all that. In fact, that was all I remembered. Riding the trike, red rum. And then actually watching it back, I'm like, this kid's putting in a good shift here. Like, it's a good performance. It's a very small cast. And a lot of the film is just Jack, Wendy, and Danny. Obviously, when Jack starts to have his hallucinations or the hauntings and he goes to the ballroom and all that sort of stuff, then sort of broadens it out a bit. But really, the kid has quite a lot of heavy lifting to do. And looking back, and I was like, he's actually really good. I was quite impressed with him. I love the old guy. Halloran? Is that his name? The other guy who's got The Shining, the guy who understands what Danny is and what he can do. That fella puts in a lovely performance as well. So I kind of just like, my beef with it does in fact hinge on Jack Nicholson just being too much. And when I read the book, Jack's mental deterioration is so much more subtle. Like, it's subtle. It's he starts out, he's trying his best, he's trying to be, do the job and look after his family, and then he loses his temper, and then he apologises and he loses his temper, and each time he loses his temper, you come closer and closer and closer and closer to the full flip, the meltdown, the complete snap of like, where's the axe? I've got me some doors to hack through. And when it finally happens in the book, it's like so scary. And I get that on the page you've got the luxury of time that you haven't got on the screen, but yeah, I just think there's no subtlety to it. Like, they arrive in these crackers straight away. That was me stifling a yawn, by the way. And I said I was going to keep it brief, and I haven't. So yeah, I've got to be honest, overall, yes, it's a classic. It's got some really iconic moments. Come and play with us, Danny, forever and ever. And yes, that image of the kids like butchered all over the hallway is horrifying. But overall, I think it's good. I don't think it's great. And actually, when I think to other Kubrick films I've seen, did I adore him as a filmmaker? Really didn't. But here we are. Wouldn't life be boring if it all like the same things? Anyway, as ever, it is wonderful to get an opportunity to see a classic film on the big screen, and I'm glad I came tonight. But now I'm going to go home and hope I don't have nightmares, because all commentary on Jack Nicholson's performance aside, still a pretty scary film. So yeah, that's it for me. Wish me luck. Katie out.